Hello, Michael Grasso with Private Pook Games. Today, here with my campaign preview and thoughts about Arkham Horror Remastered, the first in FFG's Vault series. It is a good time to be an Arkham Horror fan, in my humble opinion, right now, because we just got Children of Blood, which was a way too short but fun Arkham Horror the card game campaign. And while it was at Gen Con, I got the news that Arkham Horror Remastered is coming out. Now, what is the Vault series? Let's talk about that before anything else. Well, the Vault series is crowdfunding campaigns. FFG and Asmodee are not really known for doing crowdfunding, but they've taken into crowdfunding to basically try and bring back old out-of-print games. So if you take a look at this, you can see here's the updated art. It says the Vault series will take the long out-of-print Arkham Horror Second Edition and bring it to you in a remastered edition. As someone who loves Arkham Horror Second Edition, as far as the non-card game things are concerned, that is one of my favorite Arkham Files things, and I'm one of the rare people who loves Arkham Horror Second Edition, and it's not because I played it back in 2005 when it originally came out. It's because I just happen to love it more than the others. And they're basically saying here, this is what they're claiming. There's only very limited info we have, but they're saying there's a fully revised rule book and updated graphic design, which I'll talk about some pros and cons with that and the new art. And then what they're basically saying, this is what I get really excited for, is all new dashboards for investigators and ancient ones. We'll talk about that later. The deluxe components, I mean, we have to wait and see what they are. The new gameplay elements, they made me a little nervous, but there's something we'll talk about later that made me feel a little better. And of course, much more to be revealed. So obviously there's only limited information we have here, but I think there's enough to at least start talking about this and talk about why this is going to be a project that for a lot of us who love Arkham Horror Second Edition very much are really excited about. Now, first, let's talk about it. Why do some people like Arkham Horror Second Edition more than Third Edition and Eldritch Horror? And to be very clear, I'm not going to argue that it's the best game for everyone, but as far as things that aren't the card game is sort of on its own separate wavelength. As far as the board game Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horror things are concerned, I have always enjoyed Second Edition more than the others. I sold Third Edition. I literally just sold my Eldritch Horror collection at Gen Con this past weekend, and the reason why is every time I want to have this experience, I keep going back to Second Edition. Eldritch Horror did, to some extent, streamline a lot of things that people don't like about Second Edition. It made it a little less bloated, and then it became bloated again with expansions, but it did streamline some of the mechanics. It made some of the things a little less frustrating to wrap your head around, but I've never liked the world traveling aspect of it. I've always loved the more sort of, I guess you could call it RPG light, but the more exploring this horrible town of Arkham that comes with Second Edition. And Third Edition, to me, while I understand what they were going for, and I understand why some people like it a lot, to me feels like an inferior version of the card game. It's scenario-based. If I'm going to play Arkham Horror scenarios, I'd rather do the card game where I think it's done best. Third Edition seems to have streamlined so much about Arkham Horror Second Edition that, in my opinion, it sort of made the whole thing a little bit weaker at the end of the day. That said, there are people who love Third Edition, and I totally get why. So Second Edition holds a special place in a lot of people's hearts. For some folks, that is admittedly nostalgia, but I want to be very clear. I did not discover this game in 2005. I discovered it after Eldritch Horror was out, after the card game was out, after Third Edition already existed. I have just found that Second Edition still hits a sweet spot, as bloated and monstrous and as sloppy as the game design is in a modern context. And that is something I found a lot of people still feel. This game is very special to a lot of folks, and the idea of it being remastered in a new print with some things that might help with quality of life is pretty exciting. There are some caveats, but we'll talk about that in a second. So first, FFG is saying all components have been changed. So all the components, the board, the art, the ways we track things like money and horror and all that stuff, have all been changed. All that stuff's going to be different, but the mechanics have not. And now they did say on the page that there are going to be some, new gameplay elements. We'll see what those are. I feel like I can't say too much about that until I know what they are, but FFG is claiming the mechanics are not changing. They are conserving the way the game is played. And to be honest, I like that. I'm the kind of person where if I want Arkham Horror Second Edition and I want an easier to play version of it, I want the game to just be easier to, possibly easier to set up, easier to track, easier to work with, easier to teach, but or as easy to teach as it can be. But I don't want the fundamental game change. If I wanted the fundamental game change, I'd play Eldritch Horror or I'd play Arkham Horror 3, but that's not what I'm looking for. So I'm hoping they will stick to the gun on this. We'll see what happens. The new pastel art style, I feel a lot of ways about this. When I first saw it, it was like, interesting. And then I was looking at the old art, and there's things I think I might miss about the old art, and there's reasons why I'm hesitant to sell old copies even after I get this, because there is something nice about it. I'm not against pastel art styles. I think time will tell. I want to see more closer to finalized ideas of it, but I do think there is something, if you even take a look. Wrong direction. If you take a look over here, you can see I have the box art compared. That's only one small sample of it, but you can see there is a darkness to the original version that I don't think necessarily is fully translates into the pastel version. That said, the new version does look a little more clear, and there is something to be said about possibly this new art style maybe being a little more visibly, welcoming to having people tell what's actually going on the board. That said, I've got to be honest, the jury's still out for me on this, because the old art is something that I'm used to, and there is a darkness and a gloominess to it that I'm not sure I'm seeing in the new one. I'm not going to go super negative on it yet. I know some people have. That's fine. That's why we all have our opinions. We all have our tastes. I'm cautiously optimistic that the final printing of everything will look pretty good, but I do want to see some more components. I'm interested to see that as we get closer. Quality of life improvements. These are things I'm pretty excited about. I think not having to use stat sliders is going to be awesome. Anyone who's played Arkham Horror 2E, nobody will really like the idea of how the stat sliders work. The actual mechanic is very cool, and it's something that they got rid of for Eldritch Horror and 3rd edition, in my opinion, to the game's detriment. But actually using these little token sliders on a sheet of paper and bumping them all the time and moving them around was not fun. They're using cube tracks now for the stat sliders. They're using cube tracks for your horror and your health. They're using cube trackers for the doom that accumulates, which, if you've never played Arkham Horror, doom accumulating brings you closer to the end of the game, makes all the bad things in the world worse. And this is Arkham Horror. Things get worse regardless. Using cube tracks rather than individual tokens that get bumped around and moved around, I think, is a really good choice. I'm excited to see where that's going to go. I think that is a very, very, very good way to make this happen. And I just hope, from what I'm seeing in it, it looks like they're going to have, multi-layer. I think I'm saying this wrong, but multi-layered player boards and, not abomination. There's another word for it, but I can't think of it now. They're going to have multi-layered boards where they're going to inset in there very well. It's going to make it harder for things like your cats or bumping the table to mess things up. At least that's my hope. What else? Quality of life improvements, things I'm hoping to see. I know the previous ones are definitely in there. I'd love to see better reference cards. There aren't really, whenever you had to look up a rule in Arkham Horror 2E, you pretty much just had to find it in the rule book, figure out where it's at. Having reference cards that just have a little bit of a better summary of where things are is good. There are certainly, fan-made ones that have been made, and those have been really helpful. I found them helpful myself. It would be awesome for the game to come with one that kind of reflects how modern games have included components specifically for the purpose of helping you out while you're playing the game, minimizing the amount of times you need to go to the rule book and bring the game to a screeching halt, which, to be honest, is a big problem with Arkham Horror Second Edition. It's a problem with a lot of games that I love too, but in particular with this one, things can come to a screeching halt if you haven't been playing the game regularly. Also with the rule book, I don't hate the old rule book, but I will say that its organization is strange. There's a few things where it's hard to remember whether it shows up in this section or this section. There's a lot of verisimilitude. There's a lot of consistency now with some modern rule books. Not all. I'm sure many people could give examples of awful rule books that don't do this, but there's a lot of things now that kind of remain consistent with rule books, like where things appear, what the first couple of pages is going to be, where the setup's going to be, where edge cases are going to be listed. There's going to be a very helpful index, and the index is going to be complete and use any very complete and use any word you might use. If you want to know about one particular gameplay element, there's going to be one section of the rule book could be in, not three different ones, depending on which edge case you're looking at. That's one of the issues I would say with the old rule book. Like I'd say, it's not the worst one I've read, and it certainly was pretty good for a 2005 rule book. But I will say that I'm hoping that whatever they come up with is going to be a little bit easier. And I don't know if that means they're going to have a learn to play guide and then a rules reference like they do with many of their other games, or maybe they will have one booklet that includes both of those. Either way, I'm excited to see what that is. Now, other than that, should you back it? Well, this is an interesting question. Do you actually already like Arkham Horror Second Edition? Then yeah, you probably should. If you have an old copy and you don't feel like you care about the quality of life improvements, or if you don't like this new art style direction they're going in, you probably shouldn't back it. Keep your old copy if you'd like. If you're missing expansions and you're mad that looking for those expansions requires you to spend vast sums of money, because let's be honest, those out-of-print expansions cost a lot. The base game you can find for decent price. The expansions, those are pretty pricey now. You got to go to Noble Knight, or you need to go to eBay, and you need to shell out, in my opinion, way too much money. Not worth it. Arkham Horror Remastered would be a better way to get that content. I know for me, I don't have all the expansions, and I don't plan on buying any more, and part of the reason is because of the price, and the other reason is because this now exists. This looks like a better way to do it. So if you love Arkham Horror and you want to get the new remastered way of doing it, and you believe that this is going to be the best way to play it, and I have a feeling, well, I'm hopeful it will be, then this would be a really good idea to back it. Now, if you're curious about Arkham Horror Second Edition, I'm very hesitant to tell you to back this, because Arkham Horror Second Edition is admittedly an outdated rule set. It's not a modern board game. It doesn't do many of the things modern big board games do to try and make playing it and setting it up easier for you. It is a big beast. There are many things in it. There are many edge cases. There are certain rules that are extremely specific, and then have edge cases where if it happens in this scenario, it happens this way. But if it happens in another circumstance, the rules are interpreted very differently. And then when you add in expansions, it really does complicate the game. There are a total of 8 expansions for Arkham Horror Second Edition that Fantasy Flight Games released. Using all 8 of those expansions is an absolute nightmare. I've never tried it. I've only heard it through hearsay, because I don't own all 8 and don't want to pay the vast amount of money for them. But it becomes a very big beast. So if you're looking at this and thinking, oh, I finally get to discover Arkham Horror Second Edition, well, if you're really excited to do it, then go ahead, jump on the bandwagon. That's cool. But if you are expecting this to feel like a modern board game, I don't think it will. It's going to be one of those games that's very punishing. There's going to be luck involved. This is the height of Ameritrash gaming. And it is, when I say Ameritrash, remember, I'm using that the positive way. This is wonderful, wonderful, wonderful Ameritrash, but this is not a Euro game. This is the exact opposite end of the ballpark for that. So those are my thoughts about it. If you're looking forward to this, please leave something in the comments. Give me a subscribe. Give me a like. And obviously, as usual, be nice. If you're being a snot, I'm either going to, delete your comment or not respond. So don't waste your time being a snot. But if you want to discuss it, I'd be happy to know what people are thinking about this. I know there's a lot of differences about the art style. Everybody's opinion is valid as far as I'm concerned. I'd just love to hear yours. Thank you so much, and enjoy Arkham.